We are live now.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Mitesh. Uh, on behalf of SWI, welcome all of you. We have been doing a series of roundtables with the award winners, the SW award winners, and this is the last one in the series for the winners of feature films. So to moderate this session, we have Saivin Podras. Before Saivin goes ahead and introduces everyone, I would like to introduce Saivin here. Simon is a screenwriter, very talented, very warm. He's written films like Mary Kom, Nirja, Parmano, and the upcoming Medan. And he's the only one on this panel who's won a lot of awards but has not won the SWA Screenwriting Award yet. Uh, so looking forward to an insightful session with you guys. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you for that introduction, Mitesh, and the not so happy reminder that I'm the only one here who's not won the screenwriters.
Which I suffixed with yet. So yes, looking forward to that one as well.
Acha, you put the yet. Okay.
I did.
No, see, I've won a few awards, but I had to make calls to those organizers, just like the big stars do, that if you don't give me the award, I won't come for the award. And they just gave me that award. But Screenwriters Association Award is a no, you can't make any calls, And so clearly you guys have won it on merit, and congratulations. I know it's been a while since you got the award, but I'm sure it feels good to, be recognized by the writer community and the writers of the industry who have kind of felt that your work deserved the award. So yeah, we have Nicholas, the writer director of Akuni, Ankita Narang, who's written her story. What is it called? 1 minute. What is it called? Ankita, can you do that for me?
Welcome Home.
Welcome Home, exactly.
Yeah.
And Pratik and Sanchit have written Eve Ale U. That's how it's pronounced, right?
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, Eve Ale U. And so congratulations once again, guys, on the recognition by the writing community, the only awards for the writer, by the writers. So, how has your life changed after this award? Ankita, you want to go first? Like, how does it feel to be recognized?
Yeah, my first question was going to be, was it supposed to change? I missed that memo. But no, honestly, it's been, I feel grown up. If I can say that openly, that's the first thing that happened. I suddenly felt grown up. Till now, it's just, you are sitting, you're writing, because the room remains the same, the process remains the same. But
Right.
Suddenly that one change, and I think I'm a grown up now. I can officially say that.
Oh, nice. That's a good feeling, I guess. That's a good feeling.
Yes, of course it is.
Wow, awesome. Nicholas, what did you feel when you got to know that you've been recognized for your story for Akuni?
Well, it's been tough living with the fame and glory. Every time I walk out the door, there are people rushing towards you saying,
That's crazy.
SWA
Crazy.
award, biggest,
Crazy.
in the world. It's very tough. So, but you have to deal with these things. Take it in your stride.
I'm glad you're dealing well with it, and you've not got lost your way or anything like that.
Not yet. But you know how it is. It creeps into you, and then suddenly one day it's like, I don't know. But no, on a serious note, it just felt really. I mean, I think it's true for everybody. You just feel really happy because it's a recognition that comes from your peers. I think that's more special than anything else for all of us. So it feels really good.
Pratik, how about you and Shubham? When you guys have kind of broken some kind of record, I think so, for the awards by taking the screenplay and the dialogue and the debut award. So even if I do actually get it, I'll never break your record. So you guys have set the standard nice and high, so that must have felt something special.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like very special, and as a director, Shubham makes me look good and better and a better director, so that works. That works perfectly fine for me. But yeah, it was really like nice to be, you know, uh, fetted by your own community and people who write and who have the same struggles, aspirations, this and that. So that ways, it's really nice. Shubham?
Yeah, finally, it seems that someone understands your struggle, no, or your process. Someone who knows your process is giving you
Right.
award. So then it feels confidence milta hai. Then also it gives you hope to write more.
Right. Right. So earlier, before we started the meeting, we were joking about there will be quite a few of them who will be watching this, and we can probably push them, demotivate them, or motivate them. So Ankita, I'd like you to motivate these writers and tell us how did you come about till this point, till Welcome Home? Where have you been coming from, and what's been your struggle or journey?
Okay, I'll stick with journey, and you've changed my job profile today. I was supposed to be the demotivator, but okay, it's been quite a ride. But in a nutshell, I think I've tried every job to reach to this one. So I started writing pretty early, but call it what you will, I started writing with sci-fi. So living with the assumption that this is never coming out. Let's face it, I'm sitting and writing sci-fi. I'm trying to, looking up to Nolan at that point of time. That was the thing. Like, Prestige and Inception, stuff like that. So writing was a very personal activity on the side. But I was an assistant director for a bit in a couple of films and all of that. Yeah. And then I said, this halfway thing is not working. You're either in it or you aren't.
Right.
And so I decided, okay, one day I just stood up and decided I'm a writer now.
And now
after that, it still took a while.
Right.
Because again, 5, 6 years?
5, 6 years. Okay.
Yeah. And this film also, we sort of made it on our own because it's an extremely dark thriller.
Right.
Again, not something which is very, let's just say, easy sell, at least the pre-OTT days kind of a thing. So it was just in that moment, I said, just let's make a film. So I know the director, I've known him for years. And we actually got up and went and made a film.
Wow, that's the way to do it.
We'll see what happens after that, yeah.
That's the way to do it. Awesome.
That has been the journey.
Nicholas, your journey in terms of how you reached Akhuni and the struggles of making that film.
So I was working in the theater for a very long time. So in that sense, my work as a writer has been, going on for a long, long time. I started in my early 20s or something. So it's been almost 25 years now that I've been writing. So 12 years was just writing a lot of plays, working in the theater. So I've written a whole bunch of really bad stuff, I think the first 10 years was just whatever I produced was marvelously crap. And
like most of us, even now, like I guess I can speak for myself.
Less crappy, and so it's still in the crap space, but much less so, I think now. So it's been a long journey, and then you learn along the way. There's just always so much to learn. So, but thankfully, it's been drama all the way through. So whether it was writing and directing plays, or sort of then getting into the movies and writing and directing movies, it's been drama all the way through. So you kind of pick up a whole bunch of things along the way. It's been a long journey, but I guess if you there's just so much joy in being able to create something.
Yeah. And Shubham and Pratik, what, you guys know each other from before? Are your journeys kind of conjoined in a way, or did you guys at some point meet and decide that your minds
बहुत पहले से जानते हैं, college से. In fact, like Nicholas, we used to do theater together, me and Pratik, in Delhi.
अच्छा.
and but we didn't write any plays, but the process of our theater group was to adapt every play. So writing was a process, like part of that process. So writing का habit तो वहीं से आया था. Then we both went to film school, FTI together. Then every project was discussions, writing. So वो होता रहा. I used to write short stories for myself. Then I started writing screenplay and dialogues for Pratik actually. Started
Achha.
with him only. And then it continued till Ibalevu.
Wow, that sounds fascinating, because that
Oh.
kind of collaboration synergy that is required, especially when two people are working together, for it to be consistent for so long, is one of the, I think, the toughest things, and sometimes it's the easiest thing, so I'd like to know a little bit more as to your process when you guys are writing. Is there simmering, friction? Is there, I'm not going to talk to you for 2 days kind of a thing, or it's just like, you fight through it, and either you confuse the other one or convince the other one?
I guess not talking is not an option. That both of us realize that. So we have to figure
Oh,
out.
so you tried that.
Yeah, of course, many times. But yeah, because we know each other for a while, and we do most things separately. As in, Shubham does a lot of theater and sort of performance art, and I'm into like all sorts of things. I did a documentary, and this was the first fiction film. So that is good. Both worlds come, and sort of we come with those experiences also. But mostly because it's a great advantage to have somebody like him around, because it's always, as directors, we sometimes see the film, we work with the logic of the film and want to proceed like that. But Shubham would constantly ask me questions about, say, character and psychological spaces and emotional drafts and this and that, which sort of became a very nice thing, with I could push him in a certain way and he could push me in a certain way. And Ibalevu actually happened very, very organically. It was almost like prep had been happening for 15 years, and this just happened very, very smoothly. There were what do you say, disagreements and tension and all, but we knew that both of us were looking for solutions, and not, it wasn't about
Right.
like winning an argument.
Right. It was not personal. It was for the project. So,
Yeah.
so Shubham, in this case, Pratik sharing the credit with you is genuinely because he's written, not like many other experiences that most of us writers have, where.
Yeah, in fact, more than me, I think, because the idea was his. He came up with a newspaper cutting, and he told me that I want to make a film on this subject. We'll start writing. In fact, we were both writing in the story stage for very little time, because he's a director. He has more other works. So he was team bana raha tha. He was talking to camera person, sound. Then he joined me in the middle.
No. So this is good, because I'm sure there are quite a lot of writers. I don't know how many of them are watching this, but if we open up it to open discussion, I think we'll have a lot of stories. Yeah, mere director ne bhi sala zara credit de liya. But anyway, I'm glad, and I think you guys are working together on some projects as well.
Yeah,
we are planning to. Yeah.
Nice. So Nicholas, Akuni, it's a dish, right? It's a Manipuri dish, if I'm not mistaken.
It's fermented soya beans, which is actually a staple across Southeast Asia, all the way to the far east, all the way to Japan. In Japan, it's called Napo or something, I forget, but it's very common.
Okay.
And so in the Northeast as well, not just the Manipuri community, but the Nagas have it, the Khasis have it, and different varieties. They're all distinctly different. Actually, it's just the start, which is the fermented soya bean.
Right.
Everybody has in common in that sense, and beyond that, how you make it varies from community to community.
So how did you come up with the idea? Let all the writers who are listening to, in terms of where the germination of an idea happens, and how do you think that that idea has a potential? We struggle with the fact that a good concept might not lead to a good story or not to a proper screenplay of a film. But so where did that germ come from, and how did you kind of have a metaphor for whatever happens in the film through the making of that dish for the friend's wedding?
For me, in this particular case, it wasn't difficult. I mean, normally when you're trying to think of a story and you're not terribly talented, then it takes a lot of work. But in my case, particularly with
You're
it
you're
wasn't
very
difficult.
talented.
No. I'm saying I'm not. It's always a struggle. Seriously, I
Right.
would have to think for, how some people sit there and then, an idea pops like that into their heads. Yeah, it's never like that with me. So, but in this case, I'm saying it was very easy because it's an experience that I had gone through and that most Northeasterners have gone through. Because the Northeast is so different from the rest of India. At a cultural level, food-wise, of course,
Right.
historically, and so on and so forth. Because also the terrain is very different. So historically, there's not been great comings together, as it were, um, except in the plains in Assam and Manipur to a certain extent. But that's besides the point. So with the Northeast, if you for anyone from the Northeast who steps into any of the cities and you want to cook your food, it's always a problem that you face, because we have all these dishes that are that are slightly on the pungent side.
Right.
And so this is something that everybody has faced, cooking something which is strong in terms of how
The
it's
aroma profile and all.
and they get into all kinds of stories, all kinds
Right.
of stories that everyone's gone through. Some very crazy ones, where people have been kicked out of their houses and the cops have been called and so on and so forth. So it wasn't difficult for me when I knew that I had that it was going to be relatively easy for me to do my second film because I'd kind of done one film. I knew I wanted to tell a story that was close to my heart. So it was going to be about Northeasterners living outside the Northeast and what they go through. And then I just had to pick, a story, that would then be able to, encapsulate all that. And so this came easily. I was like, let it be, a day in somebody's life where they're trying to cook this and what struggles they go through. And that's how it happened. Yeah. So thankfully, in this case, I didn't have to think hard.
Ankita, from science fiction to welcome home, dark thriller, where did that idea come from? And it's a quite a morbid idea.
Yes.
So, and where did it come from? What kind of thought did you have before you kind of penned it down?
It's anyways an inclination towards these kind of stories and
Right.
characters that I have in general, right? The why behind the things rather than what's happening. But this particular germ was actually, there was a story in 2008 in Austria or someplace about this very psychotic family. And that story somehow just stayed with me over all these years. And when, like I said, this film was made not because we have an idea and we are making this film. This film was made that with that in mind, that we are making a film.
Right.
Let's see how, which one, all of that kind of a thing. So because I'm also the producer of the film, so
Right.
all our line production, all of that as well. So this story has stayed with me since 2008, which then became the setup.
So if I got it right, you're saying you guys first decided that we are going to make a film on our own.
Yeah.
And then sat down to think, okay, what kind of a film we are going to make. And then you thought of that story that stuck in your head since 2008. You said, okay, let's explore this space.
yeah, there was a lot of stories written. We went through those that, we
Yeah,
worked
yeah,
on
yeah.
these over the years, and they are half baked and they're kept. But now you wanted to do something fresh start, and this has stayed with me. I don't think I even read the article again before I wrote the film,
Okay, right.
because it was that extreme that, like some stories just stay with you, like
Right.
the Burari thing that happened. Now I don't think I'm going to forget it ever, whether I
Right.
reread it or not. It was something like
Right.
that. So from there it started, and then the story was built around that setup, because that needs to stay. Those characters need to stay.
Nice. And Pratik, Shubham, you already said that 15 years in the making, Ibalu, is from the time the concept, that article that you cut. So, but tell me the where and how and what forced you guys to kind of say this is the story we want to say right now.
So like when I said like 15 years in the making, it's mostly to do with understanding each other's work process.
No, I get that. No, but
Yeah. So this particular story for Ibalu or whatever, it was germinated from this newspaper article I'd read about 3-4 years back before
right.
starting. the
Okay.
film. And again, like Ankita said, it something stays with you, right? And you just want to process it properly, because there's a film in there. But again, like you said, a good concept or a good premise doesn't necessarily translate into a story and a screenplay.
Right.
So those. So I was just trying to understand this and the canvas of the film, and I again, coming from theater, there's a inclination towards satire and humor and things like that, because like Nick said, like this whole idea of their struggle of just to have a freedom of what they want to eat is a, it can be a very serious film, it can be a very dark film, it can be a very funny film. So Nick chose what film he wanted to make, and there's he's navigating it through humor and drama and things like that.
Right.
It was a similar kind of process where we said, okay, this is there, but and the humor is quite palpable, but if we end with the humor, it has to go beyond that kind of humor, and the humor has to be disarming. It has
Right.
inviting to people and things like that. And I just thought that, how do I process all of this? And this is where me and Shubham started talking about, okay, how do we look at this? What are we trying to tell through this? My only concern was that the film shouldn't end up being a film about an odd job. It's an odd job story. So that was my primary concern, for which I struggled a lot, and where Shubham stepped in. Shubham, you want to add something?
No, more or less this only, because I remember this was our main concern. The film doesn't remain about this job. It must be bigger than this, and not just visually, also emotionally, also with respect to relationships or socio-political scenario. और all ये भी है कि जिस टाइम पे ई बाल्यू लिखी जा रही थी, उस टाइम पे गवर्नमेंट भी चेंज हुई थी, तो बहुत सारी चीजें सोसाइटी में चेंज हो रही थी जो समझ नहीं आ रही,
right.
जो बहुत सारी चीजें नई थी इनफैक्ट. और जॉब का प्रॉब्लम एक ऐसा है जो आई रिमेम्बर जब प्रतीक आया था आर्टिकल लेके, वो इतना आसानी से कनेक्ट होता है क्योंकि बचपन से सुनते आ रहे हैं ना, जॉब का प्रॉब्लम है, जॉब नहीं है. कभी घर पे कोई आता है काम करने तो उससे सुनते हैं, जब डीयू जाते हैं तो अलग अलग तरीके के लोग आते हैं, या स्कूल के दोस्त जब पास आउट होते हैं, जब बात होती है तो हमेशा जॉब का टेंशन चलता रहता है. तो वो कनेक्ट करने में बहुत आसान हो गया था. बट एट द सेम टाइम वी आल्सो न्यू कि ये अगर फिल्म बनानी है तो अभी के समय की होनी पड़ेगी.
Right.
और उसके लिए सिर्फ ये जॉब का प्रॉब्लम नहीं हो सकता. इट हैज टू बी मोर देन दिस. So I think the process mainly was the writing process mainly was for that only.
Right. So yes. So if I were to understand it, it cannot just be about an odd job. It is to say something more, right? It has to have that subtextual and contextual reflection of the times that we are living in. And I think that you've done that brilliantly in the film. But how tough was it when you guys were writing it to put all those layers and those metaphors kind of coming through to make the film subliminally a bigger message than what just the story would say otherwise?
I would say for myself that actually the struggle was for me was what not to be like, क्या डालना नहीं है फिल्म में,
अच्छा,
क्योंकि इतने सालों से इतने टाइम से कुछ बनाया नहीं था ना, बिकॉज कुछ और किसी के लिए काम कर रहे हैं, किसी और के लिए काम कर रहे हैं, किसी और के प्रोजेक्ट में, देयर इज ऑलवेज अ कमीशन प्रोजेक्ट।
या
तो जब अपना बनाने की बात आई बहुत टाइम बाद दोनों का एक साथ, तो ऐसे लग रहा था इतना गुस्सा है अभी, तो डालना क्या है, क्या हटाना है, क्योंकि बनानी तो 1.5-2 घंटे की फिल्म है ना, उसमें सब कुछ तो नहीं हो सकता। और ये भी है कि वो स्ट्रगल आई थिंक मेनली मेरे लिए तो फिजिकल स्ट्रगल बहुत रहा, क्योंकि टायरिंग था रिसर्च करना।
अच्छा,
वो निर्माण भवन से उद्योग भवन जाना, फिर महेंद्र हमें मिल गया था जिसने एक्ट भी किया है,
हाँ हाँ हाँ,
तो वो जॉब करता है, वही जॉब करता है, तो वो हमें घुमाता रहता था, वो समझना पूरा अच्छा सेटअप समझना, उसमें बहुत मुझे टाइम लग गया कि अच्छा ये है क्या सेटअप।
right, right, right. But that must have been a fascinating journey, though. Now, when you look back at it,
Yeah,
and how steeped in reality वो story है, because now when you say that, you went and lived and kind of followed that guy for quite a while for your research purpose, it shows in the film. Ankita, what were the themes that you were trying to tackle through the story? The story is, of course, whatever you have, but
Yeah.
the story should always say something more than what it would initially project.
Totally. Which was a bit of a fight happening while writing as well, because normally when you go to thriller, the thrill element needs to obviously stay above.
Right,
But I'm personally against writing anything which does not say something more. I mean,
right.
what's the point if you're not saying something with it? With this, obviously, considering the setup was already there because of the article and everything else, the obvious choice obviously was to talk about gender roles in society at large. And that, again, obviously, I'm a woman who has grown up in India. It's personal. It's always personal. We've always personally experienced it at some point or the other. So that had to play a major part. It did play a major part. In fact, I actually wrote one entire draft of the film, and scrapped it the moment I wrote it, because my lead character in that was somebody who was very bold and making her own decisions. And I was like, okay, if this kind of character goes through this, people might get the one line, see, that's why we say girls, they act bold and they go and get stuck in places like this. I said, no, that is not coming out from what I'm trying to say. So that was always at the back of my mind. So there are 3 women in the film who the film revolves around.
Right.
3 in one way or the other are under somebody's thumb. Sometimes it's societal, sometimes it's somebody in the family, sometimes it's just basic hardwiring. It's not even anybody else. It's
Right.
just where you've grown up in. It's conditioning. It's conditioning that has it reaches Stockholm syndrome at one point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the thread that for me was the major part of the film, the main part. The thriller was obviously what took it forward.
Nice. Nicholas, you said the story came from almost personal experiences and what you face and what you know and heard of other people from the Northeast community facing. But apart from that, was there something else that you were trying to say through the story?
Growing up, I remember, when you went out and were with friends, etc., and you came back, your parents and various other relatives would be like, why did you go out? Why did you stay with them? Family's going to look after you. You should know that at the end of the day, it's never friends, and so on and so forth. There's this big discrimination between friends and family, and friends were temporary, and family was always permanent. And then you move to the city and you realize how things can be quite different, for a lot of us.
So when you moved to the city, the parents turned out to be right?
No, the parents were not just with this, but with a whole bunch of other things, but we shall not add it. But yeah, it's just that, when you live in the city, family, consists of friends for a lot of us.
Yeah.
I think that was something else that I wanted to explore, and it is about a bunch of friends. The northeastern portion apart, it is about a bunch of friends who try and do things for one of them,
Right.
because like one of them says at the end of the film, that at the end of it all, we are all family. So yeah, that was something that was that was close to my heart, which I wanted to put there. And it's something that did hit home with a bunch of people. There's also this whole coming home after 10 years, which was, for a lot of people who, especially when the film showed abroad, but also when it was showing here, a whole bunch of people who studied abroad, and how you live in London or New York or wherever
Right.
else, and then you study there, and then you work for a while, and then at some point there is the calling, of
Back
home
home.
that you cannot resist anymore, and then you come back home. Often with Indians, of course, it is the fact that there are 5 servants to look after you, and therefore the calling is that much stronger. And you can't do the cooking by yourself anymore, and so on and so forth. But also on a serious, note, there is that wanting to go back home. So that was another thing about, in this case, Northeasterners wanting to go back home after living in the city.
Right.
But there's a larger truth there, right?
Right.
Experience that a lot of people go through. So those were
Right.
the few things which went beyond the Northeastern element.
Right. So, Nicholas, back to you. How long did it take for you to write the draft? Coming back to the writing process, to write the draft that you were happy with. I know you're a director, so you'll say that, oh, there are still some things that I wish I could change. But as a writer, how long did it take for you to come to a point where you were satisfied and say, okay, let's go make this film?
But whether you're a writer or a director, I don't think it changes in terms of ever getting to a point that you're happy with it.
No, it does. It does. Especially
Really,
if you're purely a writer, it does.
Really?
Yeah, to me it does.
I'd like to get
Because
that point.
no, because I'll tell you why. Because I have come to an understanding, to the acceptance that if you're purely a writer, and when you give the script to a director, you
Okay.
basically incubate the child, and you are now the surrogate mother, and you are going to hand over the child to who could probably be the best mother in the world, or the worst mother in the world, or a middling mother in the world. But all I can do is once in a while tell the director that, this space needs a little more love, or this space probably needs a little more attention, but the decision is yours. So that's coming from a, who's
From experience and then
purely right. No, and a lot of pain and tears.
Yeah.
Because once as a writer you give away your material to the director, then it's out of your hands for, say, most of it. Very rarely is it still in your control or in your say, because the director will then get into the daily problems of making that film, and the fights, and the vanity is not come, or the actor is not come, or where's my coconut water, or all those things. But as a writer, you're sitting there and just watching what is on the frame. You're not bothered. You're concerned more about the totality, and then you're just saying that what we are shooting today will affect scene number 44. So probably if you want to do it once again, the director says, "Shut up, yeah, I've got it." So so that's what I mean.
But okay, the film aside, once you've written your script and you go and reread it after like a year, right? Just the script, forget the visuals.
I don't.
Because
the film is already out. There's no point reading that script. Of course, there are some scripts that are lying in the cold storage, and you want to revive it. And more often than not, I get lost in the fact that, oh, how did I come up with this? Like I'm like patting my own back. This is good. Why is it in the cold storage? So I'm probably tripping on something else at that point. So, but yeah, coming back to questioning you guys, at what point did you, on paper, say that, okay, now it's time to move to the next stage?
should I start or does
Yeah,
anyone
Nicholas.
Yeah.
Nicholas, for you.
um, in the case of I've been writing a long time, as I said, so I think it's I mean, I hate writing, just to put that out there in no uncertain terms. But you get, it gets easier, I think. With Akune, I might have taken a year um, between, sort of putting pen to paper the first time and getting to the final draft that I was happy with. and and that's essentially because it was also a very familiar subject.
Right.
So many personal experiences. I've lived as a Northeasterner outside the Northeast for so long. These are all familiar things. I guess if it were a story that you were unfamiliar with, which happens all the time with us, of course, and you have to research, something like Shubham was saying, then you have to go to
Right.
all these places, meet all these people who chase away the monkeys, and so on and so forth. That there's a lot of research involved, and it takes much longer. But yeah, in my case, to come back to the question, it took a year and many changes, obviously.
Right.
And the one thing that I want to add, though, is that it never it reaches a point where you say, okay, you're reasonably happy with it. Reasonably being the important word here, because like Ankita was saying, I think if one were to look back a year from the point of writing, whichever script it might be, the whole bunch of things come up. So
Right.
you're in this
Right.
wonderful position where you live in Goa, your scripts, immediately after they're written, get sent to the director and they get made,
Yeah.
and so on and so. You're happy with your writing, etc., etc. That's not
Yeah.
with most of us.
Yes. Very valid
See,
point there.
the point being is, if I am happy with my writing, then I can convince the director with my joy.
No, but that's
It could be a bad script.
yeah. No. That's very true. That's very true, because you carry that aura with you, and that's so important.
Yeah, confidence.
Yeah. Also the belief. I mean, if you
Yeah.
really liked it, I think there would be a way that you would communicate, and
Yeah.
in non-verbal terms, I'm saying
Yeah. Yeah.
that would drive home the point. But the one thing that I want to add is that often the writing doesn't end there. Because when the actors come on board, then it takes on a whole new
Right.
a whole life of its own from that point
Yeah.
on, because each actor is then working on his character, develop.
Yeah.
Because often as writers, especially I like to say, when you're untalented, you can't think for like 20 people out there, and you're writing, you also have a story to tell, but you can't think of each character. I mean, you struggle and you try and build these characters, but it's not the easiest thing. And then when you're on set and then you see all these actors who've built their characters, have found a voice that is very distinct for that character, etc., etc. The scene again comes alive, and those dialogues come alive, and this,
Right.
and so on and so forth. I think it's a joyous thing, but that's what is great about our art, I think, because it's so collaborative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
अंकिता, आपने कितने पेन पेंसिल तोड़े और कितना कितना टाइम लगा सब फिक्स करने के लिए?
Still not fixed, but okay, coming to that point, it took about to get the draft out that we start working on it took about 4 months. But the plus point in this case was, like I told you, I was there on set. I was there. I was handling the production and all of that.
Yeah.
Yes. So the writing sort of was actually going on in bits here and there in details, because again, like he said, the moment you speak with actors, it's a whole new, everyone comes with their, and we had a fabulous set of actors. So they came with their things. So that was an ongoing process. So we tried to actually shot most of the film linear for that. So it gives everyone that freedom to, and it was a chamber drama, so it wasn't that difficult.
Right.
It's mainly in one location. Right. So at least that portion of it, it was easier to shoot it linear. The actors were adding small changes here and there. So the process actually went on for quite some time, but 4 months here to get the first thing out and say, this is what we are making. This is it. Let's start.
प्रतीक, शुभम, आप लोगों को कितना टाइम लगा? Where जहां आप दोनों खुश थे उस ड्राफ्ट से?
पहला सहमति वाला ड्राफ्ट तो आई थिंक 2 महीने शुभम.
अच्छा,
आई थिंक हाँ.
माइंड
राइटिंग
ब्लोइंग.
कभी एक्चुअली रुकी नहीं फिल्म के लास्ट शूट के लास्ट डे तक, क्योंकि
हाँ.
सब्जेक्ट ही बंदर है, तो वो हमें पहले से ही पता था वो होगा नहीं.
वो बंदा वो ही नचाने वाला है.
हाँ, तो हालांकि लिखे थे वैसे बहुत ही डिजाइन सीन लिखे थे बंदर के साथ, बट समझ आ गया.
But in the sense that was something we knew, that just because it's monkeys doesn't mean we don't write, or just because we've written doesn't mean we say we stick to this. You know.
Right.
So and for the physical things, for scheduling and actors and their preparation, so a good draft, we shot maybe on the second draft, which was everything would have taken about 3.5 months to get a solid draft in place. And then, like Ankita is saying, up and down, depending
Right.
on. We had some sequences at the Republic Day and so many with the monkeys. So we knew the general direction that a certain scene had to go. But usme
Right.
agar upar niche tha, so Shubham was on shoot. He was the co-director on the film. So
Oh, nice.
we were sorted, and me and another friend were the producer. So we didn't have to answer to too many people. That was good. There was
Right.
no creative.
Yeah.
There was no creative producer on set. So that was sorted.
So आप Shubham, you're saying something?
No,
I won't. Okay. No, अभी आप तीनों की कहानियां, जैसे अंकिता ने कहा कि is a hard sell. Now, as writers, हमारे दिल दिमाग में काफी सारी concepts और ideas होती हैं, और जब हम पिच करने जाते हैं तो बोलते हैं कि भाई पुष्पा लेकर आओ, या RRR लेकर आओ, या गेम ऑफ थ्रोन्स लेकर आओ, इंटरस्टेलर लेकर आओ. और फिर जब इंटरस्टेलर लेकर आते तो बोलते भाई स्पेस में क्यों है इंटरस्टेलर, धरती पर ले आओ. तो द पिचिंग प्रोसेस कैन बी वेरी नर्व रैकिंग, स्पेशली जब आपने लिखी हो और आपको टीम इकट्ठा करना हो जो उस कहानी के साथ जुड़ जाए, चाहे वो प्रोड्यूसर हो, चाहे वो एक्टर हो, चाहे वो. तो आपकी अलग अलग कहानियों के पिचिंग के बारे में जो अभी आपने फिल्म बनाई है लिख के, उसके बारे में कुछ हमारे राइटर दोस्त जो देख रहे हैं इसको, कि समझ में आए कि भाई पिच करना भी या तो एक कला है, या तो बंदूक लेकर जाओ और बोलो या तो मैं आपको मार दूंगा या तो खुदकुशी कर लूंगा, पिक्चर बना दो. So like I've had many of those experiences where I've had people fall asleep, जब नरेट करते हैं या कहानी सुनाते हैं, और जब कहानी सुनाते हैं तो बोलते हैं चल वो ठीक है, और फिर ड्रॉअर से डीवीडी निकलती है और बोलते हैं इस पे कुछ बना कर क्या. तो निकोलस डायरेक्टर है, आप दोनों डायरेक्टर हो, अंकिता तो प्रोड्यूसर है, तो आपकी तो बल्ले बल्ले है, आप खुद कहानी बनाते हो और खुद प्रोड्यूस कर लेते हो. लेकिन हम जैसे राइटर को क्या होगा,
ये नेसेसिटी इज द मदर ऑफ इन्वेंशन वाला सीन है.
अच्छा.
ये सब हो गया. एंड it's one is that, okay, what you're saying, that they fall asleep. The other is that the response is always mind blowing. This is happening, and then
I think that's the worst thing. If they
That's
tell
the
it's
worst.
mind blowing,
exactly
be very
shit.
afraid.
Yeah, I am not getting my hopes up. Say shit, I'll go home, you live your life, I live mine. That doesn't happen. It's always mind blowing, and then so yeah, I think I'm pretty sure with them somewhat that would have been a similar case. कि एक तो अपने टाइप की बनानी है, उस पे ये होने के बाद यहाँ चल बना लेते, let's roll the dice and see where it ends.
So Nicholas, for you, for Akuni, how easy was it to get people on board? It's an understatement to say that the prejudice is quite high. What you've shown in the film is also what you must be facing even when you go with a story like this. And where people are talking about, oh, how are we going to tell the story? Who's going to watch it? And the blahs and blahs and blahs. So what was your experience pitching Akuni to get it made?
I said, look, either you pick up this script or I'm going to cook this dish right in front of you.
How is that a threat? I would say give me both.
you would be a different kind of producer.
Yeah, that is
Are you
true.
planning that move? Are you planning that move? I don't know. Okay.
I have EMIs to pay and I'm not making enough as a writer. So
No, but I was lucky with this film because I kind of had done one film, which was The Big Struggle. The first film was always,
Right.
the biggest struggle, and I kind of a very dear friend of mine called Siddharth Anand Kumar, who worked with me in the theater for a very long time, had also moved to film, and he was in Bombay at that time, and he had just started Udli Films, um, which is a division of Saregama.
right.
And so once I finished writing it, I actually went to him. I mean, of course, I went to a couple of other people as well. But as soon as I met him, he liked the idea. Um, it was going to be a small budget film. We were trying to get, a completely new cast, which is, it was very, very tough trying to put the cast together because it was a whole bunch of northeasterners, and we could only get them from Delhi, barring a few, because of cost constraints.
Right.
So in this case, the pitching was relatively easy because he told me I like the idea, etc. Flesh it out. So I did that, and then I went back to him, and they liked it. And then there were changes, of course, thereafter, but it had been picked up.
Right. Right.
So in that sense, it was relatively easy. Yeah.
शुभम प्रतीक ई वाले को समझाने में या पिच करने में या टीम को जुटाने में, लोगों को समझाने में कितने बाल सफेद हुए?
आई एम अ वेरी रियलिस्टिक पर्सन. मुझे आई वाज अंडर नो डिल्यूजन्स कि ये कोई करेगा, तो मैंने
अच्छा.
Yeah, so I didn't go around pitching at all because it just, in the sense that two things were happening. Everybody was getting excited, like Ankita says on a one-liner, "Arey wah." But then usko viable project banane ke liye, then you need known people and all that. And the moment it went into that zone, I wouldn't be able to shoot in those locations. So
Right.
for me, that overweighed anything else. I had to figure out a way of making a film which allowed me to shoot in North Block and Central Delhi
Right.
and all of that. And it couldn't have been just a few cutaway shots of monkeys and things like that. So we had to park ourselves there. And so that was a very important aspect, which I realized very early on. A lot of people in Bombay I wasn't able to convince them about that. So then very early on, I figured, okay, I had to eliminate that process because it wasn't getting me anywhere. And
Right.
if I had stayed on it, I would have got angrier and cynical and things like that. So as a self-preservation, I didn't do it.
नहीं, लेकिन पिच करने के कितने बाद ये आपने सोचा कि चलो खुद ही बना लेते हैं?
किया ही नहीं.
अच्छा, स्टार्टिंग से ही डिसीजन मेड कि हम ही बनाने वाले हैं.
मतलब डिफरेंटली ऐसे हुआ, पहले डिसाइड किया फिल्म बनाते हैं, देन वी थॉट कि अच्छा ये बना.
अच्छा, ऐसा. ओह, नाइस. दैट इज फैसिनेटिंग. सो बेसिकली आप सब लोगों ने बोला कि हमको जो कहानी बनानी है, हम उसी दिशा में जा रहे हैं. हमको प्रोड्यूसर
we had this privilege of inexperience, na.
That's the best part. Nicholas तो turned out lucky क्योंकि उनके दोस्त जो थिएटर के टाइम से थे पहुंच गए सारेगामा में. बोला चलो भाई दोस्त मैं बना रहा हूँ पिक्चर. तो दोस्त से बोला अच्छा बना ले पिक्चर. चलो काम पे लगो.
Gosh.
So Nicholas, you said you're not a natural writer. Is that it? Like, or you're a forced writer?
That is true. Or not a ghost writer.
No, forced writer.
Yeah. As in, I do it because it has to be done, kind of thing. I enjoy the end product. I think that's true of a lot of people because it's a very, it's a tedious job, no? But yeah, I mean, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I know a bunch of writers who go, okay, but in the end, it's all good. But that process of writing can.
But
really, really.
Are you still writing now, or you're collaborating with other writers for your future projects or whatever you're doing, or you force yourself
Yeah,
to write it?
yeah, I think mostly I write my own stuff. Um, yeah, I think also I've been doing it for so long that I feel like, okay, it's just easier to sit down and do it yourself.
Right.
So I do that, and I'm much faster. By I think there was a time when I would have been intimidated of finishing a draft in like a couple of months or something, or like even in a month. Now, if I actually sit down and behave myself, which I can do. Yeah,
Like
I
like most writers.
there you
Yeah.
become disciplined, etc., but then I can even do it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, which is not bad at all. So that has happened to me, and then you feel very chuffed, and like
You
wow.
must. You should because I think everyone who's heard 2 weeks is like, oh, don't tell it to a producer. कि 2 हफ्ते में एक draft ready हो
Yeah.
जाएगा.
No,
Please don't.
yeah, I think when you are on a roll, then it can happen. I know people who can do it in 12, 13 days. And I don't mean just a draft like that, which is, just write whatever comes to your mind, and, without any research. I mean the whole shebang,
Right.
being able to, but yeah, but it doesn't happen very often. But I think it's because it's such a craft, no, writing drama,
Right.
as opposed to any other kind of writing. So I mean, there's a craft involved with everything, but here particularly more. So I think so once you kind of are more familiar with the craft, I think it comes easier. Discipline helps, of course, hugely. Without it, you'd be all over the place at the same time.
अंकिता, आपके discipline का क्या? मतलब how disciplined are you, or how good can you be, and or like Nicholas ने कहा कि 2 हफ्ते में बन जाती है उनका
No.
draft.
No. I'm not even attempting that. I am slow. I think it's got something to do with, one, I didn't study writing,
Right.
so I'm all over the place. Sometimes it starts with the climax scene, and
Right.
then the film comes
Which
down
is a
around
good way
it.
to also do a film, I think. Start with the climax and then work backwards.
No,
As
but
you
it
do with
backwards
life.
also is a path. It's not. It's all over the place. It's just, and it's sometimes the one pager comes way after the script is written. Just because somebody asks for it कि mail करना है, तो अब one pager लिखना पड़ेगा. That kind of a thing.
I think वो सबसे irritating part होता है कि हमने स्क्रिप्ट लिख दिया है, आप स्क्रिप्ट पढ़ लो, क्योंकि आपने शायद कहा था कि स्क्रिप्ट भेजो तो पढ़ेंगे. अभी स्क्रिप्ट पढ़ने के बाद वन पेजर भेजो. नहीं, 1 पेजर भेजो. अभी 100 पेज के स्क्रिप्ट को 1 पेज में हमने अभी 100 पेज का लिखा है, तो बहुत सारे इंपॉर्टेंट मोमेंट्स होंगे उसमें. तो अभी उसको 1 पेज में कंसाइज करने, क्योंकि एक्टर शायद 1 पेज पढ़ेगा. अरे भाई,
फिर 6 पेज का सिनॉप्सिस भी आता है.
कितने?
6-7 पेज का सिनॉप्सिस.
हाँ. 1 पेज के बाद.
हाँ, 1 पेज के बाद वो भी आता है.
हाँ, क्योंकि मतलब दैट मीन्स आपको उम्मीद दे दी है ना कि 1 पेज पढ़ के थोड़ा एंट्री हुए हैं वो, तो उनको और जानना है, तो 6 पेज दे दो. अरे 90 पेज का स्क्रिप्ट पढ़ा है? नहीं, 6 पेज का सिनॉप्सिस दे दो. और फिर नरेशन के लिए आओ 50. अरे सर, स्क्रिप्ट लिखा है, पढ़ लो. No, but the pangs of being a writer in the industry, but yeah, like we said, we are motivating the people to continue being writers. So
very wrong line of discussion. If that's the end goal, to motivate, we're actually doing quite the opposite here.
So you're still producing most of the stuff you're doing, Ankita, or now you are?
It's not something that I told you. It was necessity is the mother of invention kind of a thing. I am in that space in the other things that I do, but when it comes to fiction, I don't know. But I would like to, because maybe because of how I've worked or how this film was made, I'm not yet as zen as you to write something and give it away, right? Just make it how you will kind of a scene. I'm not there yet. I would rather be involved till the end, fighting and debating. That's the major part of our job, even on set. But no,
Right.
this doesn't happen. This is not why I wrote this. So I like that part. I don't know if the assistant director in me is still alive or having not reached that maturity yet to just leave it. So I don't know. So, we'll see.
Right.
I hope I get
So-
to do that.
शुभम
हम्म।
प्रतीक आपकी जर्नीज भी शायद इंडिविजुअल लेवल पर भी ऑपरेट करती होगी एज राइटर्स, तो आप कमीशन प्रोजेक्ट्स को लेकर या उसको लेकर लाइक द एक्सपीरियंस विद ई बालेऊ वुड प्रोबेबली हैव बीन कि आपने डिसाइड किया कि आप खुद बनाओगे, लेकिन अभी after that film coming out and getting the recognition that it has, both of you must be getting offers on individual levels. So how much time does that take for you to kind of create your work? Shubham, you're purely a writer, or of course you're a co-director
No,
on
no.
this film. You're a director
Yeah.
as well.
I'm not a professional writer. So basically, I trained myself as an actor.
Acha.
So yeah, so writing was just an hobby. Then with Pratik, I usually write for his
अच्छा।
project.
तो अभी
used
आप
to.
एक्टिंग भी कर रहे हो, फोकस उस
हम्म।
पे है? अच्छा। And
तो
Pratik-
राइटिंग भी चलती रहती है।
अच्छा, nice. And
I
Pratik,
think actors make the best writers, make the best directors, and so on and so forth.
so
wish.
lots of SWA Screenwriters Awards. Let's reserve it whenever he comes up. But लिखते रहो, क्योंकि he said he makes the best writers. उसके लिए लिखना पड़ेगा।
सो राइटिंग का प्रोसेस मेरे लिए भी मतलब ऐसा जैसा आप लोग बोल रहे हो या निकलस बोल रहा है वैसा ही है काफी हद तक। इट डजंट कम वेरी नेचुरली, और उसमें फेजेस होते हैं। लाइक स्टार्टिंग इज डिफिकल्ट, यू आर चिपिंग अवे कि कहां से, just trying to figure an entry point. Then at some point momentum comes and you
Yeah.
start enjoying it more, and then a lot of output comes in. But for me,
So-
like all indisciplined
Yeah, sorry.
acting directors, I love working on scenes without bothering where are these scenes going. You know? That happens a lot where Shubham says, "Oh, hello, what's happening?" So that happens to me, and I also like it. Just dialogues is something I struggle with, and mostly I would not want to restrict myself while writing, so I'll put something as placeholder dialogues in English or maybe whatever comes to me. But I know that initial part of the writing, I'm not stressing about that. Dialogues for me come in naturally a little late. I just want to figure out how a scene is being played. The content is, at story level, it's quite there, but how we tell that in the screenplay becomes important for me. And I struggle with it in the initial days a lot because I'm also trying to define for myself more than anything.
Yeah, that's
So-
the part of the process, I guess.
So that usme thoda, again, it's back and forth. Like Ankita was saying, na, some scenes can happen somewhere, and so that collation and all takes the initial time, and then it's much smoother, obviously. But yeah,
So-
initially, again,
So,
thoda
as a writer, as writers purely, हर किसी का एक प्रोसेस होता है। अभी ऐसा लग रहा है कि मजबूरी में राइटिंग कर रहे हैं हमारे जो भी यहाँ पर पैनल में है। मजबूरी मतलब या तो आइडिया फोर्स करती है मजबूर होने के लिए, सबसे बेस्ट मजबूरी वो होती है कि जहां आइडिया आपको मजबूर करे कि भाई मुझे लेज करना है, मुझे पार्टी करनी है, मुझे बाहर जाना है, लेकिन सर ये आइडिया दिमाग में ऐसा बैठा है कि इधर से निकल रहा है और इधर से निकल रहा है, तो बैठ के मजबूरी में लिखो और गाली देते देते बैठ जाते हो, लेकिन जब फ्लो होता है तो मजा आ जाता है। और एक है कि भाई लाइक निकलस ने कहा कि मैं फास्ट हूं, अगर मैं अपने आप को कंट्रोल में रखूं तो फटाफट हो जाएगा, मुझे किसी पे निर्भर करने की जरूरत नहीं है और आगे बढ़ सकता है काम। तो प्रोसेस, इट्स पार्ट ऑफ द प्रोसेस, आइदर द आइडिया फोर्सेस यू और द सिचुएशन फोर्सेस यू। लेकिन whenever you're forced and you're sitting on the table in front of a laptop or with a book, so I'd like to know कि शुरुआत कैसे करते हो? पेन और पेपर के साथ शुरुआत करते हो या सीधा लैपटॉप के सामने बैठ के, या पहले रिसर्च में लग जाते हो, यू जॉट डाउन नोट्स, because I think there are people who are watching this, probably will be helped to understand the various processes that are there in which लिखाई शुरू कर सकता है कोई, या अपने आप को बेहतर कर सकता है, या कोई कहाँ अटका है तो कैसे निकल सकते हो उससे, या दिमाग को कहाँ लेके जाके वापस लेके आ सकते हो ताकि वो जहां पर अटके उसका हल मिले। तो आपका प्रोसेस क्या है अंकिता? आपने तो पहले से ही कहा कि आप तो क्लाइमैक्स से लेकर ओपनिंग सीन मतलब कहाँ पर भी सोच लेते हो, but the jotting down of the pen or paper first, or
I write the whole screenplay longhand.
Oh,
the
wow.
whole start to finish. I don't. The laptop is the second or the third draft when it gets typed out. Till then, it's a book and pen.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I think one of the reasons it takes slightly longer also, because I can't.
Fair
the
enough.
moment I sit down to type, I think I'm still in from that generation where it wasn't subconscious. We weren't born with keypads.
Right.
So it's easier. The language flows easier. So always starts with background score for me. You have an idea, you select tracks. That from that day till the script ends is the only thing that's going to play around me whenever I'm at home. So I like that process of writing. I find it the most fun thing in the world.
Fascinating. Yeah.
It's a good excuse for me to, because I'm a person who stays indoors. I don't like stepping out, and not that kind. So it's a very legit reason. I'm writing. I'm not stepping out. I'm in my house. I'm not. So that gives me a very good reason.
It is an excuse and the truth.
Exactly. So whichever way. So, but it is. I'm not as fast because I tend to, once it starts, then you're just, the first time is just thinking bits and pieces, just thinking and jotting down points here and there.
And you're listening to a particular kind of track.
Always, all the time. Yeah.
So is it the same track, or it keeps changing with the kind of space the story is at that moment?
Depends. When I'm thinking, it's one or two tracks which are the mood of the whole film. So I'm personally obsessed with background score.
Or वो loop में?
Loop में for sometimes 24 hours. Like,
wow.
I've had friends who stayed with me for a bit, who's just hearing it in the other room have lost it. That can you just please play something else? It's been like 2 months and you've been playing one track. But yeah, but that works for me. I like that.
Nice.
It keeps the pace and mood. It doesn't let you stray.
Right.
When it comes to, even while writing scenes, if there's a track playing, you know the pace of the scene because of the track that's playing. So it keeps me grounded that way.
हाँ, मेरे साथ भी कई बार हुआ है, या तो मैं कोई म्यूजिक सुनता हूँ and if I'm thinking of a particular story, तो एक particular visual आ जाता है automatically, जो आपने सोचा नहीं है, और वो visual आ जाता है, and और कभी-कभी when you're typing, वो म्यूजिक के रिदम पे आप लिख रहे हो, तो स्पीड ऑटोमेटिकली ऐसे लग रहा है कि आप पियानो खेल रहे हो या परकशन बजा रहे हो, और उसी हिसाब से वर्ड्स भी फॉर्म हो रहे हैं. तो समटाइम्स it's almost as writers, I think at least I quite few times get out of in a kind of a out of body experience when I'm writing, where I suddenly read that page that I wrote 3 days ago and I'm like, when did I think of this? It
looks like you wrote something you've seen. You already filmed here, and I'm sort of just writing it out right now.
Yeah.
To that point.
Yeah. Nicholas, you have a process, pen and paper or keyboard, or talking to friends about that idea बार और narrate करते वो idea थोड़ा और पक्का हो जाता है. कैसे शुरू होती है?
Yeah, I guess the research, depending on what the subject is and how much time you have, plays out. Typically, I'd say if a lot of the research has been done and then it's about just the writing of it, then maybe I might take that couple of weeks where I'm just trying to put things together in my head. And the only reason I do it in my head is because I'm too lazy to, pick up a pen and sort of start jotting things down, etc., etc. So I'll just think the whole day through, and just, it's all there in my head, figuring things out, etc. So really, it depends on how much time I have. but that could sometimes from an idea sort of that you have, and if it's not difficult to research it, then I'd say you kind of go through whatever little research, and then of course figuring out the characters, and that's a lot of work too. All of that in your head, only because I'm lazy, as I said.
But
For
that I think that's with every writer. That's I think our biggest gift:
yeah,
laziness and procrastination.
It's a prerequisite. Let's call it that.
but it's not procrastination in a sense. I'm still sitting there and thinking. It's just that I don't necessarily want to put pen to paper.
You're that lazy to pick up that.
But it's
You
not
need a dictaphone. You need a
procrastination. It's not
dictaphone.
procrastination. It's laziness.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm a big procrastinator. Like if the idea is ready in my head, I'm like, हाँ ready है ना? मैं तो कभी भी लिख सकता हूँ, कभी भी पेन और पेपर में डाल सकता हूँ. तो I keep pushing it. Then I'm like, अरे ठीक है यार, कल कर लेंगे, फिर परसों कर लेंगे, अरे 4 शो देख लेंगे, ये पिक्चर देख लेंगे. मेरा procrastination होता है, laziness के साथ साथ.
So I'm usually not the procrastinating type. I'm usually disciplined in that sense. I haven't done this in a while because we were shooting, etc. in the last. But the thing that works really well for me, of course, it differs from person to person. The morning hours, I think that's golden. So if I can get out of the house by 7:30 and go to a cafe, and there are these cafes that open, like Starbucks opens in the morning at 7. There are also a few independent cafes open in the morning. I can't work out of the house. I mean, I can, but my productivity will be half of what I could achieve if I actually...
Because outside you're more focused, probably.
Because you have nothing else except that table there in front of you, So it really works for me. I remember in the 90s, maybe I'm digressing now, but this is part of the writing
process. Yeah.
It's an important point. In the early 90s, when I was writing plays and, it was a struggle because there were no cafes. That whole cafe culture came into being in the late 90s, after India opened up, suddenly all these restaurants and so on that came up, and so on. So that's when, it was such a joy because you could actually step out. So I think it makes a huge difference the hugest difference for me to step out and be in a place that doesn't belong to you, and you have this little table and your coffee, and that's it. And the earlier you get out, the better. I think if you can, I know this journalist friend of mine as well who does that early in the morning. As soon as he's, as soon as he wakes up, it's the first thing that he does. He writes, and you get those. Even if you get like 3 hours done, your whole day is free to do other things, and you get so much done. It's I think for me, I know it's very important, and it's it's almost the only way to kind of write something.
That's the process.
So once my thinking through is done, and I know I can't think more, and I just
think anymore.
you delay that. You delay. Okay, let me think some more until it gets to a point like, fuck it, I don't know if I can say that. It's like now I just have to
already
up my laptop and and do something. So that's when you go to the cafes and and then just start churning out. The other thing which is really useful, I feel, that I would like to share is if again, it might differ from person to person, but sometimes if you're just stuck in one cafe, you get a little complacent in the way that you get complacent in the house saying, oh, I've got this to do, I've got that to do. So it's good to do 2 coffees in one cafe, or stick to like a deadline of 3 hours or something. In any case, as writers, we've been struggling all our lives, so you can't really sort of overstay your welcome. and then you push out and you try and achieve, like you set a deadline for yourself, and then you are out of that place, and then you move on to the next cafe. And if you can do this 2-3 times also, it becomes in terms of productivity and getting you to churn out stuff, it's very useful, I find. It's a bit like for journalists where you have a deadline, you've got the paper, at least at that point of time, there was nothing else, and there was just a paper that would go into printing in the
Right,
world.
right.
You just had to finish it, and they would say journalism is literature in a hurry because you just had no choice. You would just do that. So I
Right.
feel this sort of imposition really helps. I know of a couple of other people who kind of do that.
Nice.
That's my
Interesting.
2 bits.
इंटरेस्टिंग. शुभम, आपका प्रोसेस क्या है? कलम, कागज या लैपटॉप या रिसर्च पहले?
कलम कागज तो बचा नहीं है, अब लैपटॉप ही है. मैं
अच्छा,
वो
नहीं बच्चे
लेकिन
यार, कलम कागज बहुत जरूरी है.
मेरे लिए, मैं अपने लिए बात कर रहा हूँ. तो लेकिन मैंने नोट किया है, मेरा एक पैटर्न है, मैं सबसे पहले स्टोरी पे बहुत ध्यान देता हूँ, बिकॉज स्टोरी हैज टू मेक इमोशनल कनेक्ट विद मी. वो इमोशनल अंडरस्टैंडिंग नहीं आती है तो मैं स्क्रीन प्ले पे जाता ही नहीं, मैं जा ही नहीं सकता, जा ही नहीं पाता. मतलब बहुत बार डायरेक्टर्स फ्रस्ट्रेट हो जाते हैं कि स्क्रीन प्ले पे आते हैं, स्टोरी हो गई ना, बट आपको हमेशा लगता है नहीं, कुछ बचा हुआ है, कुछ है नहीं, मतलब कुछ फिल इन द ब्लैंक्स है, वो कुछ करना है, कुछ करना है. तो उस पे मेरे लिए स्टोरी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाती है. And maybe the story is not well written. Maybe these are broad strokes. Maybe these are there are jumps in the story. But main points, the relationship, the arc of the relationship, the journey of the character, and why is he doing it? What happens? And mostly what happens in the story. What are you trying to say? So that's why while writing story, I talk a lot with my friends. I keep narrating stories, half, full. I keep narrating them ideas. I keep narrating the stories again and again. And mostly, a lot of times, they are not for them. They are for myself.
Yeah,
self-iteration. Myself. Am I making sense? Am I being, is it dramatic enough for me to get interested in the story? And then I move to screenplay. And that, I think story is a tiring part because that's the, I think, spine of the film, like screenplay. Screenplay I really enjoy because then film craft aa jata hai na, then you have to think about these emotions through visuals. So ऐसा लगता है अच्छा स्टोरी में लिखा है रोया है, बहुत उदास है, अब उदास दिखाना नहीं है, लेट्स विजुअल डालते हैं, कहाँ है, मॉल के बीच में है क्या, मॉल के बीच में है, बुर्का खरीद रही है, पीछे से बुलडोजर जाएगा क्या, ठीक है पीछे से बुलडोजर जाएगा. तो वो चीजें जब आने लगती है तब मजा आने लगता है कि अच्छा जो हम बात कर रहे थे ना पहले की स्टोरी ना रहे, फिल्म बन जाए तो बड़ी हो जाए. तो सिर्फ एक XYZ कैरेक्टर की कहानी नहीं है, XYZ कैरेक्टर की कहानी इस सिटी में जो है वो कहानी है, इस शहर से परे नहीं हो सकता है ना कैरेक्टर. राइट. तो डायलॉग मेरे लिए सबसे लास्ट में आते हैं. तो स्क्रीन पे लिखते वक्त में बहुत फंक्शनल डायलॉग्स लिखता हूँ क्योंकि इनफैक्ट थिएटर मेरा ये थोड़ा फ्रस्ट्रेशन थिएटर फिल्म्स दोनों से होने लग गया था. डायलॉग्स का बहुत बैसाखी बनने लग गई थी सीन्स में, आसपास देखने में कि अच्छा डायलॉग बोल देगा तो समझ आ जाएगा, डायलॉग बोल देगा, एंड देन ऐसा लगने लगा अच्छा फिल्म का काम क्या है फिर, एक्सपोजिशन. कैमरा, हाँ जब कैमरा लगाते हैं कहीं तो उसका काम क्या है, जब डायलॉग को ही बोलना है सब कुछ. तो डायलॉग्स इज आई ट्राई टू कीप लिमिटेड जितना, मतलब कई बार नहीं हो पाता, कई बार ज्यादा लिखने पड़ते हैं क्योंकि फिर डायलॉग का भी एक रस होता है बहुत बार, ऑफ कोर्स उसका रिदम, उसका जिस तरीके से बोला, तो मिक्स एंड मैच ऐसा करके मोस्टली यही पैटर्न होता है.
प्रतीक, आपका क्या कुछ स्पेशल प्रोसेस? कैफेज ढूंढ लिए हमने, बुलडोजर भी बात कर ली उसके बारे में, बुलडोजर पे बैठ गए. शुभम, आप कहाँ बैठते हो?
मैं कम ही जाता हूँ कैफेज, मैं घर पे ही रहता हूँ. मुझे आई लाइक द कंफर्ट.
अच्छा.
Once in a while I want to be uncomfortable because it's got too comfortable, but no, generally pen and paper for me. Lots of notes. I might not be writing the story or writing sometimes scenes, but it's mostly notes for myself, sometimes characters, sometimes space. Personally ऐसे space के बारे में पढ़ना अच्छा लगता है, just to define where we are setting this. It's what space is this, and if it's not something to my immediate experience, then I'd like to read about it. Just थोड़ा मुझे लगता है ऐसे it helps me strengthen the ground with underneath my feet. Just knowing कि okay, this story is about, say, like for monkey repellers. So what is this world? Before getting to any kind of scene or whatever it is, just figuring out how it is happens and what are the different aspects. One will be the administrative aspect. one will be the people doing it, one will be the monkeys, one will be Central Delhi, and so on and so forth. So one will be, say, contractual labor. And so all of these, you read lots of cross-sectional things and then say, okay, what is relevant to me? Keep narrowing down the subsets and overlaps and things like that. Because I like to have scenes finally in the screenplay, which are again not just one thing, no? Where
Right.
more weight, because otherwise scripts tend to be too long and stuff like that. So I like to do that kind of thing in the beginning, quite a bit before getting into any kind of writing.
Interesting.
And then, and then just to get myself started, in my head I keep thinking of the beginning. So initial portions I write quite a few times. Just say
Okay.
the first 10 pages, or just the, like you're saying, exposition, or just where do we enter the story from. So that
Right.
I really take a little bit of time to arrive at. But वो एक बार हो जाता है, then I feel more confident. So generally that's been my thing, which has worked for me till now. And I'm hoping this can get more efficient.
No,
But
I'm sure it will, because the more you do it, the more you form your own process. Like Nicholas kept saying, no, that everyone's process is different, and he wants to put himself in an uncomfortable place or discomfort, rather, ताकि वो फोकस्ड काम करे, 3 घंटे काम करे, बोले चलो अभी हो गया. लाइक मेरा टारगेट, जब मेरा आइडिया दिमाग में बैठ जाता है, और मैं फर्स्ट थिंग मैं जो करता हूँ, मैं स्टेप आउटलाइन कर देता हूँ कि what happens in this story. Probably it'll have 20 pointers each half, and if some places it gets elaborate automatically when you're thinking, I elaborate it. And if some places I just need to put that he's going to be sad, for example, so I just put sad. How and why, I'll figure it out. The main meat kind of comes that once I'm locked with the what is going to happen in the film in terms of the basic scenes, then it becomes easier for me to even narrate it to someone, where I get an idea of कि फिल्म का पेस कैसा है, उसका जोन, उसका टोन कैसा है, उसका एब्स एंड फ्लो कैसा है. तो मेरे लिए वो स्टेप आउटलाइन में ज्यादा मेहनत लगता है. 1-1.5 महीना मेरा स्टेप आउटलाइन में जाता है. एंड देन वंस द स्टेप आउटलाइन इज लॉक्ड, then I can get into scenes very easily. Dialogues I struggle with, so it's mostly English dialogues. But I make sure that the English dialogues are right. The English dialogues are not placeholders. मैं हिंदी में लिखने की कोशिश करता हूँ, लेकिन मेरा की और का में प्रॉब्लम है, मेरा स्ट्रिलिंग और पुलिंग में प्रॉब्लम है. I'm a Mangalorean Catholic, तो our keys and cars and the strilling and pulling is all the same. So sometimes when I try to write it in Hindi and people are reading it, they're saying, हंसा रहा है क्या emotional scene में? Because my intention is कि emotional scene में हिंदी dialogue लिखूं, साला उसको कोई हाथ नहीं लगा सकता है. And it invariably turns out to be funny because of some grammatical error, or so I've given that up now, and I make sure that the English dialogues are heartfelt, because then the dialogue writer can come and completely change it around, but at least that emotion is pat, because that is also very fascinating dynamic, right? कि अगर मैं एक स्क्रीन पे राइटर हूँ और जो मैं लिखता हूँ वो एक डायलॉग राइटर के हाथ में जाने वाला before it goes to the director, so you're always worried that the integrity of the scene will be maintained or not. And but luckily I've had wonderful dialogue writer friends who kind of, you know, only taken the scene up a notch, because probably of my contribution, that I try to make sure that the English dialogues are pat in terms of the emotion. So let's probably, what is your advice to people who want to take up writing? Like, probably we can talk about 2 films that you can suggest to a writer or a wannabe writer, or someone who will learn something about writing. The 2 films that inspired you in your space, and why?
Okay.
Nicholas, you have the answer ready?
I can think of one film immediately.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a film called Farewell My Concubine, which is by Chen Kaige, and was 1990, 91, 92, whatever, when it came out, and won the Palme d'Or that year. And it's the stuff of literature as well, which is what makes it great, because it's the story of China from the 1920s, 30s, starting with the Japanese invasion, then the whole Mao Zedong thing, including the Cultural Revolution, and so on. So all into the 60s and the 70s. So it's actually the 50, 60 years of a nation, told through these three people, a triangular love affair,
Right.
an unrequited love, which is, I think, one of the greatest uh,
Yeah.
themes,
Peace. Yeah. Themes.
yeah,
Yeah. Right.
unrequited love. So it's about, this triangular relationship between two men and a man, but two men and a woman. So I mean, a film like that for me is beautiful, because it spans, so much time, and tells the larger story of a nation or a society, and so on and so forth. That's something very
Wow.
close.
So
Obviously, literature-wise, there are a whole bunch of these films, from Anna
no, but
Karenina.
what you're saying, if I, that from the sounds of it, that when there's so much history being told, so much how it changed, how society changed, how it changed the characters and vice versa,
Yeah,
and at the same time to tell it in that 2 hour, 3 hour
yeah,
span. So
yeah,
structurally, probably it had to be very strong, and then yet for the theme of unrequited love,
yeah.
the theme had to be strong and the emotion had to be strong.
Oh
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
think, so for people to understand how to probably craft,
yeah,
and say a lot more in just one scene rather than taking five scenes to say the same thing,
yeah. Uh,
because I think that that's very important in screenplay, at least for me, that
Yeah.
when I read a lot of material, क्या होता है कि ऐसा लगता है कि लव दिखाने के लिए हीरो और हीरोइन के बीच में हम 10 सीन लिख देते हैं। अरे लेकिन उसी लव को दिखाने के लिए 10 सीन के साथ एक गाना भी होता है, लेकिन एक गाने में अगर लव दिख रहा है तो 10 सीन की क्या जरूरत है? नहीं, उनमें ज्यादा प्यार है। अरे ज्यादा प्यार क्या होता है? तो 10 सीन की क्या, पहले 10 सीन काटो, नहीं तो गाना काटो। लेकिन गाना काटेंगे तो टी सीरीज बुरा मान जाएगा, तो 10 सीन काट लो, प्रोड्यूसर के पैसे भी बच जाएंगे। So it's a battle when you're reading someone else's script, or when you're presenting your script where you're saying कि love दिखाने के लिए गाने में आ जाएगा, या 2 सीन दिखा दो और लव सेट है। बट नहीं, उसमें लव स्टोरी होना चाहिए। अरे 5 सीन उसके लिए डालना पड़ेगा। दैट्स माय फाइट मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम, कि लव स्टोरी दिखाने की जरूरत नहीं है unless the film is a love story. Ankita, what is that one film you'd recommend which kind of helped you probably understand structure or dialogue or character or emotion?
I'm actually blanking out.
Yeah, it's one of those questions, and someone asks you what's your favorite film. It's like,
Exactly.
How-
There's like a list with a why behind it, right? I can't just say I love it. There has to be a why behind it. I'm not talking just as an audience. I'm talking it as my profession. So it's an essay, right?
Right.
So, but I remember the one that first, because I have this love for parallel narratives and all, and
Right.
I remember watching Prestige for the first time
Hmm.
when that seamlessness of good screenplay stood out.
Yeah.
That having seen it so many times, I still cannot narrate it when it goes to which character and how. It's just seamless flow. And so that is one film that actually pushed me to give it a shot. It's still a long way away
Right.
from there, but to write something that seamless when it comes to screenplay, definitely.
Yeah. Structure was wonderful
Yeah.
in that one. It just kept you hooked because of that, probably.
Yeah, because you never know where it's going, and suddenly it's
Yeah.
back and forth. Because normally what happens in average films is you cut to flashback, and the flashback lasts so long you forget where you are in the present. And it was seamless. It was just perfectly timed and balanced. And
Right.
so for
Right.
structure, for screenplay, especially that one film, it stands out to me still.
शुभम, आप कौन सा फिल्म रेकमेंड करोगे
मैं
फॉर
इतनी देर से
अंडरस्टैंडिंग
सोच रहा था,
स्ट्रक्चर?
एक फिल्म बहुत मुश्किल है बोलना, इतनी सारी आ
दो-
रही हैं दिमाग में,
दो 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 बोल लो.
एक गरम हवा मुझे लगता है बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट फिल्म है
Yeah.
राइटिंग समझने के लिए.
हम्म.
जिस तरह से टाइम, स्पेस और जो पीरियड दिखाया है और जो फैमिली का जर्नी दिखाया, आई थिंक वो एक एक सीन टेल्स यू कि अच्छा, ये बहुत पिरोई हुई स्टोरी है, बहुत पिरोया हुआ स्क्रीन प्ले है. इवान्स चाइल्डहुड मुझे लगता है बहुत अच्छा स्क्रीन प्ले है.
Right.
और बहुत सारी हैं, मतलब.
Right. Right.
बट या
these are, I think,
इंडियन
great
फिल्म में
examples.
मुझे लगता है गरम हवा इज वन ऑफ द वेरी वेल रिटन फिल्म.
So yeah, well, everyone should
Also,
watch.
I think कई बार बुक से कैरेक्टर्स का बहुत सेंस मिलता है ना, अच्छा कैसे लिखने हैं नॉवेल से.
Right. Right.
Like for example, this I know this is an old novel और वो मूवमेंट भी बहुत पुराना हो चुका है, but the way Kamu wrote his characters in Outsider, The Stranger, it really helps me to rethink about those characters and write. अभी भी बहुत काम आती है वो नॉवेल.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Literature में जो जितना भी पढ़ लो,
Yeah.
it's a never-ending gold mine. मतलब that is one suggestion that I give to every writer is the more you read, the better writer you will become. You might not necessarily read it for the sake of analyzing how it's been written now, but just the fact that these characters are going and you're going into that world will subliminally somewhere subconsciously make you a better writer is what I feel. And sometimes as an exercise मैं क्या करता हूँ कि मैं मेरी कोई इंटरेस्टिंग सी फिल्म है या जो फिल्म मुझे पसंद आई थी, मैं उसको फिर से देखता हूँ, and as the film is going on, I do the step outline of it. As the film is playing, I do the step outline of it. Like what would have been the step outline of the film before these guys made the screenplay and shot it. So I do the reverse, I do the step outline of it, and then I read it to understand, okay, how did that writer kind of get it to that point of the ebb and flow and the movement where it took me to that place where the film still stays in my head in terms of structure. Then of course the characters and how they speak and how it's shot and all, of course we try to study that as well. But purely from a writing perspective, I just watch the old films that I've liked and I just jot down the one line of it. And then I realized there is magic in that. It's like there is a magic formula, but that formula is not retrofitting it to act 1, act 2, act 3. There is an organic flow in especially the classics. There are so many films that are out there that seem formulaic, where you know कि यहाँ पर act 1 break आएगा या act 2 break आएगा and move to climax. It's very formulaic. But the great stories inherently have that structure. But when you jot those one line, you realize how magically they've taken you to that place where it feels organic. So मेरा वो exercise रहता है, of course. But what Shubham said, reading, I think is the
it's
bare
as important.
basic.
It's as important as watching films.
I feel watching movies is one thing, but reading will make you a better writer for movies.
Definitely.
प्रतीक, आपका क्या recommendation है?
Film wise तो मतलब because like अगर ऐसे बोले जो निक ने एग्जांपल दिया, एक अच्छा एपिक का एक सेंस मिलेगा. So उसके मतलब in to complement that, I would personally suggest something like A Separation, Asghar Farhadi की film, so which is just about human drama and some private characters and the dynamics between all of that. तो
And such a
वो मुझे-
simple themed story, but
yeah,
Yeah.
Very
so
complex.
heavy. Yeah.
so that kind of I think just to watch that film, I wanted to read the screenplay, so I downloaded the screenplay and just just ki okay, is this because एक notion होता है ना कि ऐसा complex film floor पे improvise होता है और ये होता है और वो होता है, but the fact to see all those dialogues written down and screenplay for what it was, so it was really helpful for me. I also like if there's one advice or something, if you're talking like that, I sometimes I also think that people also tend to think of this as literature and get limited by language. Hindi ठीक
Right.
नहीं आती, English ठीक नहीं आती है, फलाना नहीं आता है, ढिमकाना नहीं आता है. Personally, I don't think so. It matters, and there's enough to do before we correct the language.
Right.
Language, clean
Can be
grammar,
corrected.
वो हो ही
हाँ.
जाएगा.
वो
Yeah,
hygiene
enough.
है. हाँ.
And so I just hope that any young writer, she doesn't feel that she's intimidated by this whole idea of knowing the language.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the only advice I want to give, because finally this
No,
is
but
not
No, it's beautiful
And,
what you said, because
Yeah.
it काफी लोग डरते हैं लिखने से ही, क्योंकि उनके दिमाग में पहले से ये थॉट है कि मैं कॉमा कहाँ डालूं, फुल स्टॉप कहाँ डालूं, या मेरा ग्रामर ठीक नहीं है, या मेरा लैंग्वेज ठीक नहीं है. लेकिन कहानी माइंड ब्लोइंग है दिमाग में, लेकिन जब तक आप
Exactly.
उसको पेपर पे नहीं डालोगे तो किसी को प्रेजेंट कैसे करोगे.
exactly.
और जो शाना होता है, जो जिसको परख होती है कहानी की, वो तुम्हारे वो बैड लैंग्वेज और बैड ग्रामर के अंदर से भी जाके उस कहानी का कोर समझ लेगा. So
बिल्कुल.
that's
Correct.
in fact a very good advice. Shubham, do you have something to, from your experience as a writer, what a writer should do, shouldn't do, or continue to do to, at some point be out there and be successful as a writer?
I think same as what Prateek said, because we also have talked about this, and I think we also have seen a lot of people who are scared to write screenplays or stories or go to people with their stories just because they don't know a particular language. Hindi अच्छे से नहीं आती है, English अच्छे से नहीं आती, and loss सभी का होता है, वो अच्छी stories रह जाती हैं कहीं.
Right. Nicholas, आपका क्या कहना है writers को encouragement देने के लिए to keep writing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Simon, both of us are not good, right, with Hindi. And that's not, I mean, it is an impediment, and one must be able to speak the language, obviously, if you're
Right.
films in Hindi. But you overcome that. It's not it's not an obstacle you can't.
Right.
So I don't think that should hold people back. I think the ability to just tell a good story comes with a lot of experience. So you just have to keep writing. There's so much craft involved. There's just 10,000 things to learn, and they can only be learned as you keep writing and you share it with other people. And then you also then get a better sense of, of yourself, what you like doing, and the route that you want to, sort of
Right.
down, etc. I wanted to share a story actually of like a really good scene. I think I don't know. I mean, it's my favorite story on screenwriting, because there's so much that's made of great scenes that are bombastic, that like very operatic. There are lots of people spouting all these, fabulous lines, very declamatory, etc. And then there's also the kind of scenes where nothing's spoken and they're very beautiful because you find that moment and it's a beautiful moment. But sometimes scenes are also meant to be functional in the way that there's a story you want to tell and you want to take it down a certain path, and you have to find a way,
Right.
to do that. I'm prefacing this for a story that I don't even know if I have the permission, actually. This is a film called Raghu Romeo, which was directed by Rajat Kapoor, and it was written by Rajat and Saurabh Shukla. They're both very good writers.
Yeah.
And there's Saurabh Shukla, who plays an assassin. and there's Vijay Raz, who plays some guy who's looking for a job, completely useless, ye wo. And there's Sadia Siddiqui, who plays this character who Saurabh Shukla is in love with. So he's in love with Sadia, but Sadia is in love with Vijay Raz. The whole unrequited love, but we're not getting into that. And she wants to give Vijay Raz a job. So she puts him in touch with Saurabh Shukla, and obviously Saurabh Shukla is in love with Sadia. So he gives her the job. He takes the boy under his wings, and they go on some assignment where he's supposed to shoot someone, and Vijay Raz completely fucks it up. He completely spoils the whole damn thing. So Saurabh is not able to kill that woman who's a film star or whatever. And so he's really, really pissed off. Obviously, this guy has messed up his and kicks him out. And then the story goes on where Vijay Raz comes back to work for him. And then the story goes, because they wanted to take it down that path where, Vijay Raz is still working with Saurabh Shukla, etc., and the story unfolds, that way. But why would Saurabh Shukla take him back when he's spoiled like this major, setup that he had to kill this film star? And they couldn't figure out, why Saurabh Shukla would take him back.
Will take him back.
They were just saying, okay. And this is what I mean by a functional scene. They were like, okay, maybe Sadia keeps telling him, and he's in love with her. So she just keeps telling him, and, and so he takes him on, etc. But it wasn't quite sitting there nicely as a scene. So, and then finally, just the day before the shoot, apparently Saurabh, I forget the details, but he was just not happy with the scene. And he said, no, we have to try and fix this. Saurabh would just not, my character would just not take Vijay
him back. Yeah.
He would just not do that. So we have to find a way to get him to work, again with me. We have to find a way. And this is the scene they found. And it's so beautiful. And it's there on YouTube. If you guys want to go and watch it, it is such a simple scene. Basically, Sadia calls Saurabh and says, listen, I want to go shopping. Can you please come with me? And she goes to this place where the saris and blouses, all of that. And she tells Saurabh there in that shop, she says, why did you throw him away? And Saurabh's like furious, saying that guy is useless and you know what he did? He spoiled this, and so on and so forth. And then suddenly she picks up a blouse and she goes to the to the what do you call it?
The mannequin.
No. She goes to try it on.
The trial room.
And she calls him, and she says, listen, help me put on the blouse. And you can see him, sort of tying the back of the blouse. And then he's taken in by her and her body, and so on.
Right.
As she's trying one blouse after the other. As she's doing that, she tells him, listen, he's a simple boy. Why don't you give him back? He knows nothing. And as she, says these lines and talks to him, and Saurabh is focused on just helping her with one blouse and another and so on. In the end, he's like, chalo, bring him back, then go tell him. And it's such, it's such a beautiful scene. It's such a emotional scene that you saw it. It's just another scene, and yet it was the most difficult thing in that script, because you needed a scene that was convincing to actually take the story forward.
Sometimes that's the toughest thing. The link between the two scenes is, I think, the toughest part, because while writing it also, sometimes you don't pay attention to that, and then when you're on shoot, you're like, it needs to make complete sense and not look out of the story context, or it should be in the same tone, and that is when shoot stops for 3-4 hours and you're thinking, kidhar kare, kya kare, and you're wasting a lot of time.
So I just thought it was a wonderful story, and I wanted to share it with.
Thank you for sharing it, Ankita. We end this wonderful session with you, but you have to kind of show the path to the writers that why do they need to continue to do what they do, to persevere, to be patient and believe.
Okay, 2 pieces of advice I wish I'd known sooner. I'll go with that.
Fair enough.
I learned pretty late. The first complete the script. The
Okay.
number of years I've spent just writing the first 10 scenes or 15 scenes again and again, never reaching the end. I think I could have a drawer of concepts which are like the first 20 minutes of a film. Because you're not sure where it's going, you're not confident, and these ideas keep popping and they just never reach the end.
Right.
Which is disastrous. And it doesn't
Complete the
teach you
story.
anything. In the long run, it doesn't teach you anything. So however you think it's crap, finish it, then throw it. It's fine. But finish it.
Finish it.
Yeah. And second, write with the door closed. The first draft.
Okay.
Don't listen to people. You give them, at least this is what works for me. I don't narrate a single line of the story till the first draft is complete. Because it's not fully baked in your own head. And then I give it to somebody, to a half-baked idea, they'll give a suggestion which is not organic, which
or which might derail your thoughts as well.
Derail or whatever it is. So the first draft of your story or the whole screenplay, whatever works, with the door closed, your own thing, then you give it to others and take an input and, make it viable or whatever it is. But the first needs to be your own and for nobody else and with nobody's half mind in it, half vision in it. Yeah.
Fair enough. I guess that was a lot of gold right here with all our SWA Screenwriter Award winners. Nicholas, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, may I say something? I just feel, and I really, really believe in this. I feel we're all privileged to be artists, in whatever way that we, some are, of course, we're all writers, but also others who are dancers, others who are musicians, and so on and so forth. I really believe in the fact that we make the world a better place. There is the notion of quality and high art and low art, and it exists. We know that, but that doesn't take away from the fact that somebody, let's say, who's a bad actor, bad by those standards, still go and work with children in a school and be able to work with the children in such a way that perhaps one of them is sort of is impressed by it and takes it to heart, and then it changes.
Right.
And that is such a beautiful thing to do, and that is what we do as artists, to be able to influence people, to be able to shape things in whatever way. And as I said, I mean, you don't have to pursue high art to do that. You could do it in fact, there are a whole lot of people who are not doing, high quality art, so to speak, and yet they are able to influence people all the time and make these changes to this world. And I seriously believe that that's a privilege. The other thing as a corollary to that is because we struggle, because this is the path we have chosen for ourselves, we struggle sometimes for decades, without really having the money and so on. And often I have shared this with friends, and I've said, where sometimes you have friends and they're going out to some fancy place and they'd be like, oh, don't get Nicholas along, he probably doesn't have the money to, then we feel bad and so on. It's like, do not be friends with those people. They do not realize what it is like to be an artist and how difficult it is to choose this path. Seriously, it's not about the rewards. I think it's really special to be an artist. I know it's said over and over, but I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I think it's a privilege for us to be able to pursue our art. And we have that responsibility of doing that in whatever way we can, to the extent that we can. We make the world a better place.
Well said, Nicholas. मतलब हम जो यहाँ पर सारे इस पैनल में हैं और जो हमें देख रहा है, जो भी राइटर है, आपने सही कहा कि हम भी कहीं ना कहीं किसी मूवी, किसी फिल्म, किसी राइटर, किसी आर्ट फॉर्म से इन्फ्लुएंस होके हमको लगा कि हम भी ये कर सकते हैं, मतलब मैंने पहली बार शायद सोचा कि मुझे सिनेमा में होना है जब मैंने जुरासिक पार्क द फर्स्ट पार्ट देखी थी, क्योंकि डायनासोर्स भाग रहे थे स्क्रीन पर और मैंने बोला ये तो एक्सटिंक्ट है, ये कैसे भाग रहे हैं यहाँ पर। और मैंने फिर रियलाइज किया कि सिनेमा में कुछ चीजें होती है, सीजी होता है, वीएफएक्स, जिससे तुम जो सोच सकते हो वो स्क्रीन पर पर्दे पे आ सकता है। फिर बाद में आपने वो स्टैनली कुब्रिक का भी कोट पढ़ा या जो भी, इफ यू कैन बी थॉट इट कैन बी शॉट। बट निकलस आपने जो कहा वो बिल्कुल सही है। हमारे पास शायद पैसे ना हो या रिवॉर्ड्स या कुछ ना हो, लेकिन हमारे पास ये जो कला है, इससे हम शायद दुनिया को खुश कर सकते हैं या दुनिया में एक बूंद डाल सकते हैं उस समंदर में, जहां पर किसी से कहाँ इंस्पिरेशन होता है या किसी से कहाँ इन्फ्लुएंस होता है वो किसी को पता नहीं, लेकिन उसमें हमारा भी हाथ है सोसाइटी को या लोगों की जिंदगी को बेटर करने में। एंड दैट इज आई थिंक द ग्रेटेस्ट जॉब and the greatest superpower we writers have, especially through the stories that we make, the stories we tell the other people, the stories we tell our friends, because inherently if you're a storyteller, you will be telling stories any opportunity that you get. And thank you for the wonderful films that you guys have made. Did it on your own, produced it on your own, directed it on your own, and said we don't need a producer for it, but wrote it and believed in that story and went and made it. You guys are an inspiration to the other writers who are watching this, where they are struggling कि हमारे पास कहानी है लेकिन प्रोड्यूसर के पास जाए, डायरेक्टर के पास जाए। आजकल शायद प्रोड्यूसर की जरूरत भी नहीं है, डायरेक्टर की भी जरूरत नहीं है, तुम खुद डायरेक्ट कर सकते हो किसी भी तरह वो फाइंड आउट करके, try to get your story out there. And thank you for being such inspirational people with the work that you've done, and I can't wait to watch what you guys are doing next. And thank you for spending your time with us at SWA, and I'm sure anyone who watches this at whatever point in the future, because this is going to go into the
time cap
metaverse, to even the aliens will watch it at some point and say, oh, there were some good writers.
Listen, Pratik is going to get annoyed with me, but I just have to add this. He just got married last week. So can we all congratulate?
Hey, congratulations, Pratik.
Pratik, sorry.
Wow, bhai.
Thanks, mate.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Badai ho. And all the best. Hope it, it's a happy marriage where you write more, because a lot of married people are default writers.
Yeah, you either happy or become a
apart. Yeah. Jokes apart, wish you all the best for your marriage and for all the things that you're doing in the future. And thank you, the SWA, for this wonderful opportunity for me to getting to know you guys as well. So thank you. Thanks, Mitesh.
Thank you.
For that wonderful introduction. Yaad rakhunga.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Sayan.
This is the
was fun.
SWA award non-winner saying goodbye right now.
बहुत ही इंसाइटफुल था कॉन्वर्सेशन, बहुत ही मजेदार था. थैंक यू वेरी मच एवरीवन. राइटर से बात करके हमेशा यही बात समझ में आती है कि प्रोसेसेस सबके अलग अलग होते हैं, तकलीफें सबकी एक जैसी होती है. सभी प्रोक्रास्टिनेट करते हैं, सभी अनसर्टन होते हैं अपने काम के बारे में, सभी के साथ एक इम्पोस्टर सिंड्रोम बैठा होता है पीछे. बट फिर भी आप सबके काम में इतना रिगर है, आप इतनी अच्छी फिल्म बनाते हैं. थैंक यू फॉर योर फिल्म्स, थैंक यू फॉर योर वर्क. प्लीज कीप डूइंग देम. थैंक यू साइवन फॉर वेरी वंडरफुली मॉडरेटिंग इट. थैंक यू एवरीवन. इसके साथ हमारा राउंड टेबल, सारे राउंड टेबल्स का सेशन हम सीरीज हम खत्म करते हैं. Thank you very much on behalf of the SWA. Thank you everyone.
Thank you guys and all the best once again.
Yes, I win. Yeah.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.